Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to speak to this audience and to the people that watch online. I'd like to tell you that I'm here not to be a teacher, not to give you any lessons, and not to tell you that you're doing something wrong and you should improve. Not at all. My intention is to push you to the limit in the next 20 minutes and try to look from a different perspective. Let's say looking from a different perspective is a kind of subtitle of my talk. So it is also my mantra. When communicating with my friends, I'm always trying to make them look from a different perspective. It is not easy. So now our talk is about mobility and consumption and how both concepts are actually merging. So I have a kind of visual aid, and the whole concept started for me all of a sudden. It was not planned. It was not a kind of research. It was just jumped to my mind. And I'd like to share with you a story of the origin of this idea. I was implementing a bike-to-work project in Bulgaria, financed by the European Community. And last year, I had to attend the final conference of this project. And I have prepared, of course, a PowerPoint presentation. And I had to speak about what we did in Bulgaria for 3 years. And then, a few minutes before my presentation, a crazy idea jumped to my mind. And I decided to make a confession in front of their audience, which I'll share it with you now. So, I can confess that after 3 years of working on Bike to Work with the target to change the mobility behavior of commuters in Bulgaria and in the Balkan countries, I totally failed changing the mobility behavior of my own children. And of course, they were cycling since they became 4 or 5, but then in the last few years in the school, they refused to go to school by bike. And I was technically prepared to answer any of their objections, like, my bike will be stolen, so take an old bike, just go to school by bike, you'll save time. No, they refused. And I felt something's wrong with me. If I can't change, if I can't push my children cycle to school, how can I change the community? How can I change the mobility behavior? So then I realized that we parents are not in control of our children. And those of you that plan to have children, please keep it in mind. Your children will be educated by the community. And now, here is the point why I'm here. We are obsessed by motorized mobility. We are obsessed by consumption. So if you care about your future children, you have to make a step forward now. You have to change this attitude, or a little bit modify it at least. So this is the answer of the question, what is the target group? You are not the target group. You cannot be changed. I cannot be changed. We cannot leave our cars. We love our cars. The target group is the children. But those children that are perhaps not born yet, or those which are very small. And this message is for them, not for you. I hope you'll transmit it one day. I'd like to tell you a few words about what does it mean, motorized mobility. Everybody knows it's a car. But think in a way that a few generations ago, cars did not exist, or they were very rare in our streets. So at that time, our grandparents had livability and lovability on the street. If we want our children to have the same livability and lovability, you have to think once more for the concept. My car, the car, a car. This is a very simple thing, but you need a lot of efforts now to change this attitude. So this is the merging between consumption and mobility. It's that simple, but you need to look from a different perspective, always. And I'd like to share another story. When I was thinking about this presentation, I realized that having a nice car was our dream of my generation as children. We as children had pictures, colorful pictures on our walls of beautiful cars, Western cars. We were not allowed to have such cars in Bulgaria, also in your country at that time. And suddenly in the 90s, Iron Curtain was off and everybody was able to take any car. Some have brand new cars, some second-hand, but still this is our dream. So how can you take our dream from us? How can you take this car from us and take a bike or mobility as a service or any other modern solution? It is very difficult. Think of the concept that this guy with the Mercedes or that guy with the Renault. This is a very common concept. We associate ourselves with the car, with the technology, with the brand. This is consumption. I want to add another point on this talk about the previous presentation about the esports. Now, try to look at the previous speech from the perspective of consumption. How will you assess the previous presentation for esports from the perspective of consumption? How much you consume when you watch esports? It's the same concept of branding your car, branding yourself, associating yourself with a car and with the mobility that you use with the car. Now, I'd like to make the things very short. The OTL approach, famous as one tweet length approach, is a very modern concept. Everybody is using Twitter. And the idea now is to demonstrate how a simple feeling that you have towards somebody is copying the model of building your attitude towards consumption and therefore towards mobility. Now, I'll need an assistant to demonstrate. It's a small show, but you will also participate, please. Forget about your smartphones for a minute and look at the person next to you, pair, doesn't matter the sex, male or female, and do what I do. When you meet a person and you like the person, the first stage is to shake a hand. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello. Say hello. That's easy.
Do it again.
But then you like the person. Then, if you have a chance, you touch two hands. That's nice. But that's not enough. We want more. We touch the arms. And then is the final stage. We hug. A long, long hug. Thank you very much. I have just made an illustration of what has happened between you as a person and Her Majesty consumption and her twin, motorized mobility. Actually, after a few generations training us to be consumers, we are in a constant hug with Her Majesty the consumption. But it's not that simple, because in a dual relationship with a person, with a wife, with a girlfriend, you have always the option to get separated, to get a divorce. With the consumption and motorized mobility, you are bonded forever. And your children as well. And they get the same hug long before their puberty. And this is a fact. So the only chance is for the next generation, keep in mind. So now, if you think about this concept, you keep in mind also the idea that in a normal relationship, you need some air. You need some time. You don't have to enter too much into the personal space of your partner. which is the same approach for the relationship with Her Majesty consumption and the twin motorized mobility. Try to keep a little air, some space. It is difficult, but for your future children, it's necessary. Now, we'll continue with another not very standard approach. I'm going to tell you a fairy tale. This is the Red Riding Hood fairy tale. Everybody knows? Everybody knows the story, but now you'll be surprised to listen to a different perspective of this fairy tale. Now, each one of you already in his or her mind has a favorite of one of those three pictures. I'll be honest, I prefer the middle one, the real one. But that's my attitude. Anyway, the story goes like this. The Red Riding Hood is sent by her mother to the grandmother with a strict mobility plan. Use the main road, never go through the forest. And the Red Riding Hood, of course, broke the law, broke the order. From intelligent mobility, a little bit moved to stupidity with mobility, which we do every time when we park our car in a place that we shouldn't and so on. So she went to the forest. Now, what happened with the wolf is not part of this story. We are not going to look at this. What is important, and put a note on this, what is important is that after their meeting in the forest, the wolf had an irresistible desire to see her grandmother. So he was in a hurry to go to the grandmother. And now here is the paradox. According to the fairy tale, he used a shortcut of a shortcut. How can it be? In our 3D world, there is no shortcut of a shortcut. There is only one shortcut. According to Einstein, in very high speed, you may have merging of 2 points in the 3D world and get somehow to a 4D dimension, but this is just a theory. In our normal 3D world, we can't have a shortcut of a shortcut. Now, the simple answer is that perhaps the wolf used a bike to go faster than the Red Riding Hood to the grandmother. Then pay attention to the cruelty of this story at the end. Probably he didn't eat them. He just consumed them. He's a perfect consumer. And in addition, it was not enough, he ate the food from the basket of the Red Riding Hood. Well, this was the mobility story. But there is another story behind. It's the consumption story. If you ask the question, why on earth the mother of the Red Riding Hood lives in a different house than the grandmother? How happened? Is it because she wanted to have a fancy house on the other side of the forest? Is it because she had some problem with the mother? I don't want to push you forward to live with your parents and your children to live with you, not at all. But the consumption perspective of this fairy tale is that every time you go to work and you have to commute, think twice if it wouldn't be better to move your house close to your job, close to your work, or commute somehow in a fast way. You don't have to cross the forest every time. You don't have to use the main road. Think about the mobility. Think about the consumption every time that you choose your location where to live. So the different perspective of the fairy tale gives you a chance to look at your own life, to look the way you behave when you decide how to commute. There was a recent conference this week in Sofia. I'd like to share with you a concept there. It's called the semantic mobility. Mobility has a lot of names and a lot of subdivisions. Consumption is always the same, it's very simple. But mobility is very, very complex. The semantic mobility is a very new concept. It's actually a startup for an idea that you have to merge consumption and mobility into one whole thing. It's like you come to this place, or let's say it's a theater, you need a ticket for the theater, and you pay for the ticket and the mobility service is one whole price. So you don't look at the product that you consume as something different, and you need a mobility to get to the place where the product will be consumed. Doesn't matter if it's a service or it's a product, but both ideas are now merged from this last startup that is financed by the European Community. Another thing I'd like to share with you is that this talk, Marco, is right now transformed into an application for European funded project with the idea to add mileage, the mileage concept of any product that you buy or consume. In very simple words, it means when you buy a product, food or clothes or furniture, you normally look at the price, look at the ingredients if it's food, look at the origin, look at the brand. But you have no idea how many kilometers or miles has been involved, included, added into this product for the production, for the planning, for the transport, until you get it to your shop. And hopefully one day we shall have a regulation from the European Community stating that each product should be labeled with a mileage. And you should consider, before you buy anything, how many miles are in. And if you buy something cheap with a label of 50,000 miles and compare to something a little bit more expensive with only 50 or 100 miles because it's local, then maybe not you, but your children will consider buying the local product instead of the global product. And global product, including those that you order online, are generating too much mobility. You don't move from your computer, but somebody moves. Somebody sends this product to a logistics center. Fly, drive. It is so complex. We are so much in this hug of Her Majesty the consumption. It's beyond the limit. And the last thing that I'd like to share with you is something that happened to me yesterday when I came for the first time in this country. I drank tea. Melissa and lavender. A nice tea. But here is a message. Slow down and make more your time. It's a perfect grammatical mistake. I like it very much. I like mistakes. The message is, don't be afraid of mistakes. When you change your attitude, when you try to change your consumption attitude and mobility attitude, don't be afraid. Follow this perfect message. Slow down and make more you time. Thank you for your attention.